Well, good afternoon. Today we're going to plant some few cabbage plants. I've got about a dozen I'm going to end up planting. I'm just going to plant a couple here for the sake of the video, kind of show you what I do. Just kind of show you what I've got here. In my wagon, I've got this compost, and it's compost that I've made. It's been making for a while. It's got a little bit of straw still in it. It hadn't broke down, but it'll be fine. That'll just help it retain water. And then I have a bucket of pine shavings that have been sitting over the winter in a pile. When I clean my chicken coop out, I pile them up. That's what I'm going to line my beds with. This spring, as I plant my garden, I'm going to mulch my beds with that. I'm going to try that method this year to not only feed the soil, create its own compost, but also it's going to help it retain water because that wood will act like little sponges. And I'm hoping to be able to cut down on my watering some. So anyway, with that, we're going to get started. Now, what I'm going to do, this is the bed that I'm going to be planting in. Let me set my camera down. This will be the bed I'm going to be planting in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant about a dozen cabbage plants, and you'll space them out. I usually space mine out about 12 inches apart. If you're planting in ground, I think they recommend that you do up to 18 inches, but I don't do that much space in these raised beds because I can kind of control things. Now, a couple of things I'm going to do with this, and that you need to do when you plant. There's this gardening term and farming term. It's called monocropping. Monocropping is when, if I wanted to just take this bed and do cabbage only, or if I want to take the next bed and do lettuce only and then tomatoes. But what I do is called, except for I even do it with my tomatoes, I do what's called polyculture. And I plant companion stuff together that not only may help feed the plants that they're planted next to, but it also doesn't take away nutrients. Like for cabbage, they feed heavily on nitrogen. They also require a little more water. So what I do in those beds, good companion crops, if you've got a raised bed garden that you can plant with your cabbage, you can plant radishes. I put radishes in all my beds. I explained that in a previous video about it seeming to help control the fire ant population, but it also is like a decoy plant. Cabbages are very susceptible to a couple of different things. First, flea beetles. They love cabbage leaves, really all what's called brassicas, your cauliflower, your cabbage, your broccoli, that kind of stuff. Flea beetles love those things, and they eat the leaves, and also the cabbage leaf worm, or cabbage worm. And that comes from, you'll see little white moths that'll get around your garden when things start blooming and even before. And what they do is they come in and they lay their eggs on the bottom of those leaves. And then of course those eggs hatch and they create the little cabbage worms, little green worms. And that's what does the most damage to your cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower. And I had issues with those last year. Now this year I'm gonna plant these. I've got it's like almost like a hoop net that I'm gonna put over my brassica plants this time, my cabbage and stuff like that fits on this bed. It's the same size as the bed. And what that's gonna do, it's gonna have a netting that won't allow the moths to get in to lay the eggs. And I'll put that on probably today as soon as I get done with what I've got to do here today. And then the thing about that is I won't have anything in this bed that requires pollination, because in this bed I'm going to do 2 rows of cabbage, then I'm going to do some radishes around the edges. I'm going to do a few herbs, some rosemary maybe, some mint, some things like that. That'll help ward off insects too. But I'm also going to plant a couple of more rows of onions in this bed. And I may come back, if I've got enough room, and plant a row of romaine lettuce to go along with this, because lettuce and cabbage goes good together. as I've said before, my beds are 12 inches deep. This one's not quite full. It's about 9 inches probably, but that's fine because cabbage and lettuce, onions, that kind of, they don't have a deep root system like a tomato or squash or something like that. Those beds just about have to be topped off to do well, but this one don't. So I'm just gonna plant it as is. Now what we'll do, first thing I'll do is I'll take some of this compost. Now what I've got in here, I've got the dirt from last year, which is just regular old composted dirt. And then I've got several inches of the gin dirt. Now I've added probably about 4 inches of gin dirt this year. And now I'm gonna put down some of this compost that I made. I'm just gonna work it across the top of the soil where I'm gonna plant. And what that's gonna do is gonna help feed these cabbage, especially in the early stages, but it'll continue to feed as time goes on. So what I'll do is I'll work this in, I'll put it in, and then I'm a hand guy. Oop, there's what we want. See if I can get him out where you can see him. Little earthworm. This stuff's full of earthworms, and I love it. But I just take my hands and work it in. Now, you know, some people, they'll take their spades, and that's fine if that's you, but I find something therapeutic about the dirt. I don't know what it is, but I like to get my hands in the dirt, play in the dirt. But I just kind of work it in. And then all I do, it's real simple. I won't be putting any fertilizer in the holes or anything like that. I know some people do that, and if that's your thing, you go right ahead. I pretty much do not use any commercial fertilizer. I don't use commercial pesticide spray, I don't use any of that stuff on my garden. My garden's organic. I know there's a lot of debate about organic, non-organic. Well, I'm just one of those crazy people that believes a lot of the stuff that is commercially made is probably not best to put in your body. So I use natural stuff. For pest control, I use things to ward off the pest. Basil is a great natural pest control in your garden. You plant a few basil plants among your plants, and I promise you, your bugs and your worms will be minimal. I think last year in my tomato bed, I picked 2 of the tomato hornworms off my tomatoes the whole season. I've had years before I started doing basil that it was an everyday thing. I was having to pick hornworms off, and those things can absolutely obliterate your tomato beds if you don't catch them. But the basil, they don't want anything to do with basil. Marigolds is another thing that I plant throughout my garden beds, and those things are my pest control. You know, when it comes to the cabbage worms, last year I kind of had an infestation of those. I just came out here at night and picked them off. It's a little time consuming, but again, I just don't like the idea of throwing poison on my plants and then me eating them and giving them to other people to eat. So anyway, I use that. So anyway, I've got my compost worked in. Now I bought these, I think, at the co-op here locally. They're made by Bonnie Plants, or grown by Bonnie Plants. I attempted to grow some from seed. That's a work in progress. I'm still not quite there as far as starting my own seed and plants, but I'm gonna get there. I'm studying it, I'm gonna work it, and I'm going to get there, I promise you. But for now, I'm gonna use these, and all you'll do, there's 6 of these to a plant, and you just take the pack, and what you want to do, you don't want to pull the plant out of its roots. You want to try to keep this dirt intact. So I just tear away this little thin plastic, and then you just take your hand, or if you use a little spade, create a hole, and then you're going to take this whole thing of this dirt. And the reason I use this, there's stuff in here that's going to continue to feed this plant. And you're going to put this plant in the hole, put a little compost in the bottom. You want to leave the plant, of course, above the surface. It's not like planting tomatoes where you bury half the plant. With these cabbage and things like that, you don't do that. You leave the plant exposed and plant it up to the height of the dirt that's around it. And then what I'll do is I'll just go down through here every 12 inches or so, 10 to 12 inches, and I'll set out another cabbage plant. I usually get about 6 or 8 to a length on my 8-foot beds. And like I said, I'll plant 12 for right now. I'll come back and plant some later. But you know, I don't need 25 cabbages coming in at one time. Of course, I eat some of them, but I give a lot of them away. But anyway, I'm going to do that. Like I said, I'll come back and I'll plant some onions. I'll set some onions out, plant my radishes, and then here in a couple of weeks, I'll get my herbs and get some of those planted in among everything. But anyway, that's the cabbage plant. Not a lot to it. Like I said, I'll come back and mulch. I don't know that I'm going to mulch right now because these plants are so small. It'll be just a minimal amount I can put around them. So I might grow them, let them grow a few more inches before I come back and mulch. But I am going to mulch around them, and I'll have a follow-up video on that coming back. But what you want to do when you mulch this is you want to cover all the dirt. You don't want to see any dirt. So anyway, with that being said, that's it. And I appreciate you tuning in. And we'll have some other videos coming up. I'm hoping the plants will start arriving at the co-op and some other places here in the next couple of weeks, and we can really get going on our gardening. But anyway, for now, that's all we've got. I may have a couple other things coming in later as far as videos go today. It's just according to what I get into, but for now, that's all we've got. You guys have a great day.